Hey guys. So for whatever reason, I was recently thinking about Wembanyama and what it's going to look like when he's in the NBA, and then I decided to think a little bit about the teams that are most likely to get him and how he fits into those situations besides the obvious of he becomes the main guy and all that. So yeah, let's dive into it. Of course, for the quick recap on Wembanyama, the size, the handle, the shot, the athleticism, gracefulness, shot blocking potential, like it's all just through the roof, and he is often referred to as one of the best prospects of all time. So yeah, anyway, the three teams with the best odds for him right now are the Rockets, Pistons, and Hornets, with the Spurs in fourth place. And I'll talk about some other teams too. A lot of the time, I'm going to talk about him screening for whoever is on whatever team I'm talking about, but again, he can do so much more than just screening. So there's going to be ISOs, there's going to be post ups, there's going to be face ups, he's going to be a terror in transition, and just a whole bunch of stuff. With that said, yeah, get ready to hear screening a million times. Picturing Wembanyama in Houston, I immediately think about him and Jalen Green, just Wembanyama screening for Jalen Green, of course. Well, personally, I believe in Jalen Green's pull-up shooting a lot. I mean, hell, his 42 points that he just had against the Wolves is full of pull-up jumpers. And so based on that, I think one day the two-man action with those two just could be, if not impossible to guard, just incredibly difficult to guard. Yes, Jalen Green still has progress to make on his passing and split-second decisions around screens and all that stuff, I know. I mean, I think there's a reason why my favorite thing with him still is him working off of Şengün as opposed to him running everything right now. The other thing I'm imagining in Houston is him with Şengün, which really gets my mind going because offensively speaking, that would be pretty wild. I will talk about the defense because I think that's a conversation too, but offensively, man, Şengün's passing ability, obviously from the post, the top of the key, he's been bringing it up more in transition after rebounds and all that recently as they've just been feeding him more recently as well. And Wembanyama just simply existing would be enough for Şengün to get, like, I don't know, at least 5 assists a game to the dude from wherever he is on the court. I mean, I could picture some Pau Gasol, Andrew Bynum-esque alley-oops, or Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, if you will. Now, defensively speaking, okay, that would be something to figure out, because, I mean, with Wemby, if his best defensive role proves to be as a rim protector, which those are the projections right now, then okay, you'd have to figure that out with him and Şengün defensively, I get that. But the other end is so exciting, just let me have that for right now, okay? And you do have Jabari, who can make your day easier with whatever you want to do defensively. Is Kevin Porter Jr. the ideal guard in that situation? I mean, I don't know. In one sense, it's like Wembanyama could make other guys' days so much easier generating open looks for him. In another sense, it might be like, all right, KPJ, we like you, but like we don't need you shooting 15 times a game with Jalen Green, Wembanyama, and Şengün on the team. I imagine Jabari would get himself some more open looks in that dynamic as well, which would be good for him. Also, weirdly, I could picture KJ Martin screening for Wembanyama on some like Jamal Murray Jokic type stuff. Now let's go to the Hornets. So of course you think about Wemby and LaMelo, and besides just the highlight thing and maybe being the most popular team on TikTok or whatever, not that I'm that tapped into that sort of thing because I'm old, but of course you think about just the pick and rolls and the alley-oops, and those situations would be great. You also just imagine the gravity that Wemby existing would create for then LaMelo to kick out to whoever is going to be on the Hornets when we fast forward a couple years here. Just because there's currently trade rumors with Hayward and Rozier, although Rozier's contract is not easy to move, certainly. Or I guess I imagine that to be certain. I don't know for a fact. The other thing, too, is like LaMelo's good from three. I mean, yes, sometimes he takes some threes that you're like, I didn't really need you to take that step back right there, LaMelo. But I mean, if teams are going to have to collapse onto Wembanyama, because of course they're going to have to, and you already have one certified good shooter there in LaMelo, that's just going to make your day easier. The other thing, too, is Mark Williams, who, does project to being a good rim protector, right? And he's already shown some signs of that, at least in the games that I've dove into for him a little bit here. And, that's a question, right? Like, could teams picture Wemby playing with another big, or would you want him as the lone big guy out there? Because if you can put him out there with another big, and listen, Wemby might just be so damn talented that almost any sort of lineup is going to work around that guy. I mean, we'll see. But if you could put him out there with a good rim protector and, like, offensively, you don't kill too much of your spacing around him and stuff, like, it might just be really damn difficult to score on you inside, And I think that's a similar thing you can talk about with the Pistons a little bit, because Jalen Duren, he's doing some things, man. I know that the scoring and the rebounding are most noticeable right now, and deservedly so. But just his verticality and all that, man, like picturing that with Wembanyama would be pretty damn wild. But again, it's not a guarantee that Wemby's going to be out there a lot of the time with another big. We'd have to see. I mean, to think about the Pistons a little bit more if they were to get him. Of course, you think about Cade and Ivy and Wemby screening for both of those guys. The thing with Ivy recently, because with Cade out, he's had to take on a little bit more ball handling, and yeah, it's an adventure. Like when he drive into the basket, sometimes he'll pull off some nice acrobatic layup, and other times he tries to finish through like 3 dudes and he misses his shot, and it's like, yeah, it's just going to happen. He's a normal rookie guard who has the ball a lot right now. Other times he has incredible moments in transition, and you think about a Wemby, Jaden Ivey transition show in Detroit, like, yeah, that'd be something. And then, of course, you have Cade, who's more methodical, coming around screens, putting the defender in jail, getting him on his back and all that stuff, and just how Wemby can operate around that. It is interesting that a lot of these teams already have guards who I think could have really good chemistry with Wemby. Granted, I could have good chemistry with the guy because I would just throw him the ball and call it a day, but you know what I mean. Another thing with the Pistons is that Isaiah Stewart has been going through a bit of a evolution of a season, if you will. He's taken more threes, and it's been a little rocky. I mean, his overall percentage is not great at the moment, but there does seem to be a real effort in turning him into a three-point shooter. And defensively, he has dabbled in switching defense for these guys as he's been there for his 3 seasons. And it's interesting. I mean, if he could be like a 4 who can switch and shoot threes, maybe that'd be your ideal guy next to Wembanyama, you know what I mean? But it's still a process with him. And I say as a 4 because he's done that with Jalen Duren for some minutes this season. Now let's get to the Spurs. So Devin Vassell's an awesome shooter from kind of everywhere. Unfortunately, he had a knee injury, or knee surgery, I should say, about a month ago, and I don't really know what the timeline is for him to be back, but I just picture him and Keldon not having to be the 2 leading shot takers on San Antonio for the sake of Wemby if they were to get him. And I feel like it all just starts to make a lot more sense for them. On top of the fact of Trey Jones, I don't think he would be the first guard for people to imagine with Wemby. But for what it's worth, I think Trey Jones working around screens with Wemby screening for him would be pretty good. Like, yeah, Trey is not the pull-up three-point shooter to make that 2-man game like super devastating, but he's still an efficient passer. I also would like the idea of Jeremy Sohan with Wemby. With Sohan, the 3-ball has been better recently, but really I think about like his cutting and his attacking closeout potential with just everything that Wemby can create. Is Jakob Poeltl on the Spurs if they get Wemby? I do not know, but shout out to Jakob Poeltl. Also, speaking of Sohan, him and Wemby could be a great foundation of a defense. Now let's dive into some of the teams that do not have as high of odds, but you still have to at least think about it. I'm pretty sure AD is back the day that I'm doing this video, and the Lakers have been competitive since they had their rough start to the season. But as of right now, the Pelicans, of course, have their pick, and they are 13th. There is a world in which the Pelicans could end up with Wembanyama through the Lakers pick, and if that's the case, then I'm sorry, Western Conference, but your days are numbered. Which, side note here, as a Celtics fan, I would really appreciate if Wembanyama ended up in the Western Conference because I don't want to see that guy in a round 2 series like 3 years from now. Or depending on how good he is, maybe earlier than that. Which I think would definitely happen if he ended up in Orlando. That's just terrifying, man. Him, Banchero, Franz, that is about as good of a young big 3 as you could possibly imagine. Does Wendell fit into that? I mean, he's played with Bol for a good chunk of minutes this season. He did that similarly with Mo Bamba a year ago. So they've dipped their toes in that water already. I feel like Franz can just exist as a wing, whatever he technically is between a guard or a forward. I don't think it matters. And whatever position Paolo plays, he's still going to get a bunch of trips to the free throw line. Just for some actual basketball stuff, I randomly think about Wemby screening for Paolo, whether it's at like the top of the key or even like within the 3-point line on some like free throw line type of stuff. And just with how physical Paolo is and the fact that Wemby's just, I mean, the dude's just going to be able to make shots over anybody. Like, I know it's a cliche, but I do not know how you guard that. Now let's go to the Raptors. So I think of all the teams I'm mentioning here, besides the Pelicans, I think if the Raptors got Wemby, that might be the largest instant jump from a team. Now, we don't know what they're going to do at the deadline. There's some rumors about Van Fleet and Gary Trent right now, and even possibly something with OG Anunoby, and apparently one team offered like 3 first-round picks. But I just think if you slotted a great center onto that thing around Siakam and Scotty Barnes and potentially Anunoby, we'll see, I just think that instantly boosts them to somewhere in the East. And then I think about just Nick Nurse and all the things he draws up defensively. I mean, the Raptors' defense has slipped a little this season, but with Wemby in the middle of that whole thing, that just seems terrifying, man. I mean, they already have Fred screen for Siakam, so they'll have anybody screen for that dude. I imagine you would see some Siakam, Wemby 2-man action stuff. And then at this point, I mean, it's a pretty safe bet that I've already mentioned the team that's going to end up with the guy. So I guess the last thing to at least think about for half a second here is, will we see any team try to pivot and just bottom out towards the end here. I mean, given the play-in tournament and given owners' desire to get some playoff revenue or some play-in revenue or whatever, I don't know. I mean, you look at the Blazers, right? 3-7 in their last 10, 12th seed. I just can't imagine that front office would do anything to give themselves better odds at Wemby. On top of the fact that Dame is probably just going to go scorched earth at some point here and just drag them to like a 6-game winning streak or something. So I don't know. There's always the possibility of Utah doing that. I mean, they're 50 games into the season now, so they would have 32 games to just really bottom out. And I mean, like if Danny Ainge wants to, I imagine he's got offers for a lot of dudes on that team. Of course, he's not trading Markkanen or Kessler. But besides that, I would say basically anything's a possibility. And yeah, the odds are not very strong for this one, but a Wemby Markkanen frontcourt, given where Markkanen is at now as a player, I mean, that's just a really talented frontcourt that can dribble and shoot. And I mean, they already run creative off-ball actions for Markkanen where they started from the corner and all that, and they do something similar with Wemby. I will at least mention OKC for 4 seconds because that was a conversation with them coming into the season at least, but they've been so good recently. I just don't think they're going to bottom out. Like, SGA has been too good. Giddey is developing more of a mean streak on his drives to the rim. Their defense is chaotic, but it works. You've got Mike Muscala and Kenny Hustle stretching the floor out as centers, and Isaiah Joe's shooting like a madman, and Jalen Williams is just this creative ball handler and all that. Like, I just don't think they're going to suck. So I guess that's kind of it. I mean, there's also the potential of like the Wizards, the Bulls, the Pacers, those teams bottoming out at this point. And Halliburton's hurt for the Pacers right now, so maybe that'll kind of make the decision for them. I don't know. The Bulls have been more competitive recently as they have just kind of dug themselves out of that hole they had for themselves. They're still 3 games below 500. We'll see. I'm just kind of rambling at this point. Granted, I kind of always just do that. But yeah, man, Wemby, he will be in the NBA, and it's going to be something.